Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Cyber Queens podcast. We are, of course, your queens. All three of us are back this week, Meryl, Erica, and Amber. I'm Meryl, resident ethical hacker, offensive security expert, and cybersecurity woman hacker of the year 2023. Yay. I am joined by Amber.
Yeah, Amber DeVilbus. I'm an account director.
Erica Eakins, recovering sales rep, soon to be CEO.
Soon to be cyber executive. And
Yes.
we have a very exciting topic today, backing off of our episode that we did about AI and ethical concerns there last week with George. I'm super excited to have Sean with us today. We are joined by Mr. Sean Griffith, Esquire. Mr. Griffin, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Hi, my name is Sean Griffin, with or without the Esquire. I am an attorney here in Washington, D.C. at the firm of Robertson & Cole, which I just joined a little while ago. I do mostly business litigation, so if you are fighting with another business over a contract, probably give me a call. And I also do a lot of cybersecurity work, and that is anything cybersecurity, privacy, AI, and even cryptocurrency. So whatever you have with respect to cybersecurity, I'm also your guy. So here I sit at the corner of 12th and Pennsylvania Avenue here in DC, and really excited about my podcast. I have to say, you guys have the coolest music of any podcast I've ever been on, so I'm already pretty excited to jump into the things here.
That makes my little branding heart so happy because I'm the one who went through like 100 songs and gave Erica like 5 to pick from, and then she picked this one. So
I must feel very cool.
I know, I'm like, it's all, it kind of puts us in the mood, you know, it's a good segue.
Yeah.
And that brings us to today's topic. Today's topic, we're gonna be talking about cyber, the law, and cyber law, where they meet in the middle. And we are super excited to have Sean's expertise here. So Sean, please do tell us, I assume you were just a business and contracts lawyer first. What got you interested in the cybersecurity intersection of the law?
It's kind of funny. I fell into it. I was doing a lot of, like I said, business litigation, and actually I was the guy helping a client defend against asbestos litigation. Lawsuits from all over the country were coming in, and it really is sort of a mill. I didn't really enjoy the work, but you know what it is you get like thousands of complaints a day from all over the country, and we were National Coordinating Council, so from Hawaii to Maine to Florida, what have you, and these thousands of complaints would come in per day, and usually you have to answer a complaint. That's not how we did things because there were too many of them. We hired contract attorneys to sort of gin up answers and then get the answers out the door. And so somebody had the bright idea. This was like in the 2003 timeframe, about 10 years after I got out of law school, that we should scan the complaints in and then shoot them all to the various contract attorneys who could then gin up the answers and shoot them out the door. And then we'd get in documents, and then we have to send out documents, so on and so forth, right? And so they bought the scanners, they bought the equipment, and they had it sitting there. And then we were supposed to go live in a few days. And I said, well, you know, who hooks all this up? Because I was in charge of the contract attorneys, in charge of the part of the facility. I was like, well, where's the technical guy who's going to hook all this up? And they said, who in the what now? And I said, the technical guy who's going to get the paper complaints there onto the scanners there and then onto the computers over there. And they looked at me like I was speaking gibberish. And I said, well,
like you had a horn grown out your head.
Well, they just give me sort of this blank stare. Like I was just like, you know, babbling nonsense. And I was like, I've learned that since that look means that you're the guy, Sean, because nobody else has thought about this. Right. So I spent some time hooking this stuff up and getting all this stuff up, and then figuring out, so, okay, you get an email. And so, you know, Amber, you're in charge of Northeast. So if a complaint comes in from Maine, it'll go automatically to you. Erica, you're in charge of the Southeast, same deal. You get the idea. And then we were getting in these documents. These documents coming in. It was working pretty well. Then we started getting in more documents. And because it's asbestos litigation, you had to deal with like people's medical records, right? Yeah. And we could sort that out fine from a technical perspective. But then the thought occurred to me, hey, we're getting in some sensitive information here, some private personal information. What if somebody, you know, hacks into this for some reason, or we have some sort of something happens? I didn't know what the words for that thing happening was, but I knew something could happen with documents on a computer that they could get not off the computer and out into the world. The internet was a thing then. And I said, well, what procedures do we have to protect against that? And I got the same blank look. Hold on, let me see if I can do it. Okay, look there. Yeah, exactly. Sort of deer in the headlights, what are you talking about, look? And why are you worried about this? Yeah. So I said, well, it looks like I'm the guy. So I sort of try to figure out. since I knew it was not a word, that it was not a thing then, but I knew it would not be good for us if other people's personal information got out into the wild.
Hmm.
The law was not that developed then, but somebody would have figured some way to hammer us, because asbestos attorneys, they're very clever. They're very uh, they would come after us pretty hard. So I figured that part out too, and then I got to be known as the electronic discovery guy, electronic document guy, and from there, the information
Nice.
security guy. And then from there, once cybersecurity became a thing, I was a cybersecurity guy, and I started doing that for a while, doing cybersecurity type stuff as the field developed. And eventually, I went and got my certification. Now I'm CIPP, Certified Industry Privacy Professional US, from the IAPP. That was it was actually kind of nerve wracking, because I had not taken an exam since I graduated from Los
Pass the bar?
Since I passed the bar exam, right? I passed the bar exam, and it was like a while later, I was taking this exam, and I was like, but it was the exception humiliating if this was the exam I failed. Like, at the very last, and you just had to click the button to see if you passed or not. And so I clicked the button, and like, yes, I passed first try. So I was very happy about that. And, so
Yay.
now I'm
Yeah.
certified at everything anywhere in the U.S. I'm a privacy professional, and I've just been rolling on from there ever since. I've gotten involved in AI and cryptocurrency for a little bit, and just doing a lot of litigation, privacy litigation, if you have that. And here I am.
Boom.
I love your journey, because that's how it happens to so many people. So many people just kind of start to educate. They get scared and they educate themselves. And then they're that one person who has security kind of thrust upon them. And they're like, you're the security guy now. Congratulations. You're like, yeah.
A lot of my career has
For
been me
me.
saying, I should have figured that out. And then I figured that out, that I'm the guy who's figured that out, so nobody else has to, right? So, yeah, that's the way it goes.
Well, don't be worried, when you say that it
Definitely.
would have been funny if you failed that one test, because anything in cyber, I feel, is so difficult for everybody. It's not, some people are geniuses, right? You can't all be like a Meryl who passes a test without studying. But I mean, anything cyber related, it's hard. There's a lot to know and cover yourself, especially from a legal perspective. And that's why I was so excited when I met you at the airport. Just so everybody knows, I inserted myself into a conversation he was having while we were waiting to board a Southwest flight. He was actually talking to somebody else, and I overheard. And as a salesperson, naturally, I'm like, ooh, cyber. I hear him talking about something. I'm like,
Yeah.
hey.
What's fun?
Well, you were wearing your Cyber Queens t-shirt, and I said, oh, I'll bet you do cybersecurity. He said, yes, I do cybersecurity. And I said,
The
"So
shirt
do I."
works. I'm telling you,
does.
I have my cyber Queen
Yay.
shirt on.
That's effective
Yeah.
branding, more marketing. So well
Of
done.
course.
By the way,
And
nobody
I wanna-
nobody come at me in the comments for the shirts. The shirts are coming when they come. Okay.
I know people have been asking if we are getting the shirts out. We will. It's just the prices keep going up and things are going on. But yeah, effective marketing. Wear the Cyber Queen shirt, and here we are today. So we have
Yeah.
a lot of exciting stuff.
I know,
Very
of
nice.
course.
Shirt. I feel like as a special guest, I should get dibs on a shirt.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
You'll
we'll
be
sure to
one
get
of the
you in
first people to get a shirt.
crop
I
tops.
swear to God,
Awesome.
all of our guests are ticked at us. Like, when am I getting a shirt? I'm like, just as soon as I have time to source one.
You can't show the cool music and the cool logo, and then maybe I see the shirt, and then you can't get a shirt. It's like,
I know, it's horrible.
Blame
I'm so
people.
interested in something that you said. First of all, I can totally relate about these certifications, because despite what Erica said, I did not pass every certification the first time I take it. I failed Sec Plus the first time I took it, and I failed CEH twice the first 2 times I took it. Okay,
Yeah.
it took 3 times. So, but it's true. Cybersecurity certification tests will just spank you, man. Like, you're like, I studied, I'm good, I'm a smart individual, and they're like,
yeah.
No.
So you thought,
I mean,
they
it's
say.
really stupid.
It was
No.
harder for me because a lot of the exams are written. Okay, so if you train as a lawyer, they train you to thinking into the gaps, right? The spaces between the law. Like, I'm not going to break the rule, but I am going to see what space there is in the rule, some ambiguity there is in the rule. So you really train to see ambiguity.
Mhm.
But in the CIPP test, it's all about, it's multiple choice, right? What is the answer here? 1, 2, 3, 4. And since I've now, I've been had 20 some odd years of training into seeing ambiguity, I saw a lot of ambiguity where the person who wrote the test saw none. And So I was like, let me see how here. So I really do suspect I outsmarted myself in some of the questions. I got, I
And
passed it.
you're a lawyer, so you're like, is this a trick question? Or would they think that I think it's a trick
Right.
question, so it's not a trick question? And like, then you're just like, you're spending all 3 hours on question 2. You're like, this is horrible.
The legal part was actually the hardest part for me because I was staring at it. I was like, I know what this law is, right? But I remember a case I had once, and then I was off and running. So it was
Yeah.
I made it too hard on myself. I overthought it.
But really good information for the audience to have. Certified Industry Privacy Professional, CIPP, is another certification you can get. It is meant for the more privacy and policy-oriented professionals in cyber out there. Still a cyber cert. Good to know. So I want to ask, as someone who came into cyber from the law and like kind of had a vertical segue into it, what are some of the biggest concerns or trends that you've seen, or things that make you as a law professional go, hold up, we need to address this, that you've seen?
I will tell you, I mean, there's so many things. Like, speak for another hour on this. I will tell you right now, the hottest thing is AI and Chat GPT. And
Woo! He said
yes,
it.
indeed. Yeah, you knew it was going to come up, right? And the idea now is you see a bunch of different things, and particularly lawyers are the problem, as frequently happens, because lawyers see a machine that writes for them, and they're like, oh, all right, we're going to save some money here. And they say, okay, I'm going to get the Chat GPT to write for me, because they think that Chat GPT is a writer. And it's not. It is, as somebody called it, a stochastic parrot. I'm like, no, it's a word prediction machine, right? It'll predict what words go after the other words that sound good, but it's not actually writing, you understand. It's just guessing what it thinks you like. It's like an overeager significant other just tells you what you want to hear, right? Is it true? Is it accurate? It may not be. And so the story was going around a couple months
Listen,
ago.
if Chat GPT said it, it's true, okay?
Well, there's one lawyer who actually had ChatGPT write a brief for him, which I was like, how are you going to get away with that? And you're shocked now. As a lawyer, you're not going to get away with that, because you have to, every time you say something, you have to cite a case, right? Basically, you have to cite a case. And the case has a certain sort of like a name and then a couple numbers and, whatever to show you how to find the case. And ChatGPT doesn't know any of that. It just it just spits out a bunch of names and numbers. And so somebody looked at this like, that case doesn't sound familiar. They went back, oh, can we find this case? No, they couldn't find the case. He absolutely got busted. But that hasn't stopped lawyers. They just do more and more of their writing deposition questions using it, and they're writing briefs using it. And I'm like, some of it is fine. I mean, if you needed to help you write deposition questions, well, if you need to help you write deposition questions, I can't really help you there, but but maybe it'll help you. They we can jump a case outline pretty quickly, they say, but you can't use it for too much. And the other thing is too, keep in mind that ChatGPT records what you type into it. So people are typing in confidential information into it.
Right.
And they just take it and ChatGPT just, thank you very much. I'll keep it. I'll spit it out to the next person who asked for it. So I type in my secret, and the next person.
And that's what I tell people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I tell everyone who's using it to like check like syntax and source code and stuff. And like, is my code good? It's like, yeah, your code is great. And they're like uploading, proprietary code and things like that. And like, let's say it's proprietary code for an online email or document suite or something. And then the next person comes along and goes, do you have a good sample code for a document hosting like cloud-based suite of products? They're, yeah, here's the source code for G Suite. There you go. It doesn't know the difference. And it's just giving it away.
It
Exactly.
just gives it away. It absolutely gives it away, and lawyers have ethical obligations not to give away their clients' secrets. You can get, disciplined or disbarred if you do that, and there you are, just typing it happily into the machine. It does whatever it wants to with it. It's insane.
Thank you. So that's a really good bridge to a question that I'm really excited to ask you, because as a sales professional and then soon to be cyber executive, exploring the intersection of cybersecurity and legal domain, can you expand a little bit on how cybersecurity and the law kind of intersect?
There are a zillion ways it intersects. In my world, you sort of see data breach litigation in various ways, right? So let's say your business gets hit with a data breach. And some of your customers' information gets out into the wild. Their social security number, let's just say, or maybe the credit card number or what have you, gets out into the wild. You could get sued for that.
just so people understand that, like, I realize that this is might be a basic question to some of us in the industry, but there's a lot of people that don't understand that this intersection. So go ahead. Sorry.
There are a
Yeah,
lot of people who don't understand it.
so the individual can sue the org, or would the regulatory body sue the org, or who's suing the people who got breached?
That is an excellent question, and the answer is yes. The individual can sue the organization,
Yes.
and then what they usually do is they get a attorney to file a class action. So they get a bunch of people together. They could all get
Yep.
together to sue the organization because Erica's damages might be only $1,000, but if I get 1,000 people, each of whom has $1,000 of injury, well, that's $1 million, and then the plaintiff's attorney takes a third of that. He's had a pretty good payday, just because he could say, well, you were really careless in holding on to that information. You let it go out into the wild. And that's a lot of what I do is privacy litigation, or same with the biometric information, facial recognition in
Oh.
Illinois. That's another part of the same wrinkle of the same deal. Well,
Can
there's
you
differences, but
expand on that?
oh, glad you asked. So in Illinois, in particular, in other states, they have, well, Illinois, they call it the Biometric Information Privacy Act. And that means you have to get somebody's consent before you store their biometric information, their fingerprint, their eye scan, what their face looks like. Yes.
I got to check for that one. Go ahead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because a lot of businesses, before they, sort of wised up to it, they'd have their employees check it via their fingerprint or via their eye scan or whatever. They store that information. Look how easy it is now for you to get to the office. You don't need a key, just scan your fingerprint. And then the Illinois attorneys were like, oh, bet. Just scanning your fingerprint, huh? How many employees do you have? Oh, 20,000. Oh, well then, in that case, that's $20,000 of statute. You have statutory damages, attorney fees, so on and so forth. And there you have it. They're big cases. The railroad BNSF just got hit with a big jury verdict of that. Usually they settle because no company wanted to see what would happen, but BNSF took it to trial, and I think it was like 20 some odd $1 million they got hit with, maybe higher.
Wow.
And now everybody's like, well, we'll settle those cases now because people weren't really thinking about it, weren't really planning on it. And then heaven help you if somebody's fingerprints or their eye scan actually gets out into the wild, because that's additional damages up and over the damages you got just from storing the information securely on your own server. I mean, without consent.
Cue the Mission Impossible theme. We don't need to chop
theme.
people's fingers off anymore. We can just copy their fingerprint from the internet.
I should emphasize that they were doing this they didn't have consent. I mean, if you have consent, then it's not that's fine. But if you don't have consent, which a lot of these companies are not, then that's a big problem.
Yeah, because I'm from
I
Illinois.
have a question.
I'm from Illinois, and I think it was either Google or Facebook that had one of those biometrics, and I got like a random check or a random deposit in my PayPal one day, and I was like, I didn't even sign up for this, but I was part of that breach. So as an individual, I got some money for this lawsuit, but from a corporation perspective, I can't even imagine the millions and millions of dollars they had to pay out, but they also kind of saved money too, because they probably didn't pay out what they should, but that's just my opinion. So,
well, you didn't get what you should. The plaintiff's attorney, I'm sure, got big money from all those people, because I remember that Facebook was just sort of going through and recognizing faces and storing their facial data, but that's biometric information. So there's a reason why when you scan your fingerprint on your phone tells you this isn't going anywhere. First give you consent, but this stays on your phone. It's not going anywhere. Don't sue. Whatever bank or whatever you're using.
Now all you have to worry about is people like me hacking your phone, but that's much more difficultly said than done.
Exactly. And so then you asked earlier, would the federal regulators come after you? Absolutely. The FTC, the SEC, the DOJ. I mean, a lot of people, a lot of federal agencies and a lot of state agencies can come after you if you have a data breach. The Federal Trade Commission, that's the FTC, they are making a big deal about companies that are sloppy with their cybersecurity. And if you get hacked, like the story I tell was, I was checking out of a Marriott hotel one time, and I, gave my credit card. I stayed for a few days. I forget how much it was. And then I walked, and then as I was walking away with my bill, I got an email saying, to Marriott, we've been hacked. Sorry. All of your credit card information is out in the wild. I was like, well, how about that? And the FTC went after a hotel chain. It was Wyndham Hotel Chain because they had a data breach, but they were really sloppy about their cybersecurity. And they sued them, and suing more and more companies for being sloppy about cybersecurity. Another more recent thing was the FTC went after the liquor delivery company called Drizzly. And
Oh.
they had a Drizzly had a data breach, and FTC came in and they said, "Well, okay, Drizzly, who's your CISO? Who's your chief information security officer?" CEO said, "I don't need one. I do that work myself." They're like, "Oh, word? Oh, tell you what then. Uh, since you're doing the work yourself,
Say less. Say less.
well, as an attorney, I often say, say
Literally.
less.
Stop talking.
That's one of my code words. Say less. Say less. You're hiring me to do
Oh.
the talking for you." And the FTC said, "Okay, bet. If you're the CISO, then we'll hold you personally responsible as a CISO. And you know what else we're going to do? It says you're personally liable, in addition to Drizzly being liable, everywhere you go for the next 10 years. If you sign up to another company, you're going to have to ensure that that new company imposes a strict cybersecurity plan." So they termed the Drizzly CEO to basically the Johnny Appleseed of cybersecurity for
Good.
the next 10 years.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of CEOs' heads necessarily rolling, but I am a fan of keeping them accountable for lax practices, because if they
Yeah.
listen to more of their people telling them they need things like me, maybe less of this would happen.
Right.
Maybe. Not saying it won't
Well, that's the
completely, but
FTC's
maybe
view.
less.
You know, get cracking on this stuff because you know what you're
Yeah.
supposed to be doing, right? So stop
Yeah.
acting like you don't.
That's kind of what I was going to ask too. So one of my questions was going to be, since we're talking about SEC and the FTC, who's ultimately going to oversee and govern new law when it comes to things like AI and ChatGPT and all of these things? Who's going to own that?
That is a brilliant question. And the answer is, it kind of depends. It depends on what you're doing and why you're doing it. Because right now, FTC, SEC, U.S. Attorney's Office, a while ago, they issued a joint, this is one of the agency I'm forgetting, but they issued a joint statement. They said, listen, all you could be using AI, you need to be aware of the biases inherent in AI, that AI might be needing you to violate federal law, federal anti-discrimination law in particular. It turns out ChatGPT is really racist. And so if you use ChatGPT for a decision process, it'll make a bunch of racist decisions because it gets this information from the internet. And they're like, well, don't do that because we're not going to go after ChatGPT if you do this, and we're going to go after you. And so
Well,
that's
here's
4 different federal agencies that do that, right? Like right now, without any new laws being passed, they are saying if you break one of our laws within our bailiwick, we're going to come after you. We don't care. We're not trying to look at your ChatGPT app to see if that's responsible coming after you. Now, your real question was, if we get around to regulating AI or what in cybersecurity, what have you, who's going to be responsible for it? It depends on how the law is written. And then what usually happens if one of these laws comes around, everybody sort of clamors to say, okay, we should have control over it because it falls more within our space. No, it's our space, our space, our space. It sort of depends. And what usually ends up is like when agency has sort of the obligation or it may sound like bad, but they sort of want the responsibility for enforcing it. So agency XYZ says, okay, there's a statute and we're going to write a bunch of regulations. The regulations that have the force of law pursuant to the statute, we can impose those regulations upon everybody.
Right.
So you better know the regulations too. And then the statute gives us the right to do so. And therefore we have the lead. Now, does that mean that they're the only agency that can enforce that? No. Does that mean that you can't get sued
Right.
by an individual or a class action attorney? No, not necessarily. But
Right.
there'll be a big fight once the legislation comes down the pike to see which agency gets the chance to actually impose its own rules.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how that's all going to fit, right? Because a few years ago, technology bias was a big topic, right? Of people writing the code for this. And so, I actually just explained that to my son, what bias means, right? And he's like, it just means personal opinion. I'm like, more or less, right? Like, especially as a lawyer, right? You're probably like, well, let's actually break into it. But I think, right,
Few
when we
more
see
nuances.
things like, attackers are going in and creating different malware because it's using, all of this information and knowledge against what it knows. Ultimately, who's going to be, right? Because the government's great at pinpointing who first was responsible for this. Facebook was responsible for a lot of different things, and then it got carried out, and it wasn't just Meta or Facebook collecting data; it was actually third parties of that company, right, and or subsidiaries of that company, and so. But ultimately, it came back, right, to the founders of Facebook. So is that what do you think is going to happen, just knowing everything you know about law and regulation for the folks who created AI and different bots and ChatGPT?
It depends. I mean, I'm here in DC, so I can sort of have a first hand view of what's going on. And right now, the two parties could not agree on National Puppy Day, much less how to govern AI. And
Right.
Word.
yeah, I was like, and what's going to eventually happen is the industry is going to say, listen, we need some regulations here because we're getting sued willy-nilly. I'm mostly a defense attorney, and so I usually end up defending these claims. But what companies hate, well, companies hate being sued, but you know what they hate more than being sued? Being sued like 50 different times in 50 different states, right? And then being sued in addition by a bunch of different agencies for one thing you did wrong.
Yeah.
They don't like that. And so they're pushing right now for federal law regarding data breach, for example, just to
Mhm.
take like one section of that. Um, can we just have one standard that we can follow, and then if we break the federal law, fine, we get sued in federal court, and that's just where it is, as opposed to getting sued in D.C. and
Right.
Arizona and Utah, what have you. I mean, that's be a lot, which is not unreasonable in my opinion. It'd be good to have one standard across the country, but they get hung up on whether, okay, if we have one standard, does that mean individuals can still sue for a violation? How much is it going to be? And if there are, that's one question, and it's called private right of action. Is it going to be a private right of action? A big chasm between the two parties on that. The other chasm is whether the federal law will overcome the state law. Like usually,
Mhm.
a lot of times, if a
Right.
federal
Right.
if the U.S. government issues a law that nullifies the state law, I'm
Mhm.
oversimplifying. It's called preemption. It nullifies the state
Right.
law. So California has a CCPA. If the federal government issues their own privacy law, does that nullify the CCPA? Does that preempt the CCPA?
Mhm.
Big deal, big bone of contention,
Right.
and that's just something they're gonna have to work out. But you sort of have to work out that out through discussion and compromise and working things through. And so that's why it's taking so very long. That's why
Yeah.
I don't see it happening in the near future. So, and then who's going to be in charge of that? This sort of depends on which agency everybody agrees that has the best shot at it, who has the most expertise and like they like the best. How well do I like the chief of that agency? How well can we control and or intimidate them? A lot of things go into that.
You mean
and bureaucracy.
politics come into play?
And
I
bureaucracy.
mean, somebody's
hate-
brother
Imagine
works there and
I
they're
hate
gonna
to
run
sound
it.
so cynical. I mean, I think I'm the only
Yeah.
person who thinks this, but I think, yeah, politics will definitely come into this.
Yeah.
I have a question. So I'm a big fan of the role that GRC folks play, governance, regulatory, and compliance people, and the role they play in their organization's cyber strategy. So, we have the regulatory framework, that's the law. Then we have the organizational level policy. Usually the two official policies are the InfoSec policy
hmm
and the acceptable use policy.
hmm
And these are the things that, auditors, regulatory auditors will grade you against. Your internal standards and your procedures are just for you. Is there anything orgs can do, like getting ahead of this, given that there might not be an agreed upon regulatory agency or body or law soon to like create AI driven policies to start governing it for their org and like get ahead of this? Or what do you recommend that orgs do to protect themselves?
What I recommend orgs do, I would not try to predict what the law is going to look like. That's often a sucker's game because it depends on the next election. It depends on, it depends on what happens. If AI does something really goofy and strange tomorrow that nobody really predicted, everybody's going to react to that thing. Oh no, it launched Skynet. Okay, now everybody's about Skynet, right? So, which we're not really focused on now. What I recommend to my clients is sort of a review of your current laws. Like, how are you using this to comply with the current laws? Let's go back to bias, for example, right? ChatGPT turns out to be really racist and sexist, right? So if you are using AI to evaluate resumes as they come in the door, I would say don't do that. You gasp, but
Don't
people
do
doing it
that.
as a matter of course. I mean, I just read an article in the Washington Post about how to game your resume so you can overcome the AI that's obviously reading the resume so you can actually get an interview. Well, how do you know that AI is not just knocking out women? Oh, wait a minute. Somebody wants to be a computer programming. Well, let's knock out the women, and the men will be better computer programming, as ChatGPT will say.
Yes.
And there was a
Yes.
thread on
I saw
Twitter.
that post. I think we all did, about using AI to evaluate resumes and people saying, please don't do this. It takes the human aspect completely out of it. Like
Oh,
if HR systems suck at it, AI probably gonna suck at it.
well, because garbage in, garbage out, right? So the AI just going to keep continuing the same biases that have occurred historically and evaluating resumes, but it's going to do so pretty casually, pretty callously. It's going to knock them out, and that's what it does. And I say, well, don't do that. I represent a lot of insurance companies. One question is, should we use AI to evaluate a claim? A claim comes in, we can just run it through AI, and the AI says whether to grant or deny it. And I'd say, well, if you get sued for denial of a claim, again, are you going to point to your laptop and say it made me do it? If you get sued for bad faith, are you going to, is your laptop going to pay the fine? No, the laptop is not going to pay the penalty. You, the insurance company, will pay the penalty. Keep that in mind going forward. What you're doing. Do you know how this AI really, really works? No, you probably do not. You probably know that it, gins up something. The AI could write a very convincing claim denial. It'll cite the language of the policy and everything because it has seen a lot of policies, a lot of the grant letters, a lot of denial letters. But is it correct?
No.
ChatGPT, generative AI, doesn't care about being correct or not. It just cares about pleasing you, giving that little thumbs up, and if you like hearing it, well, then it'll give you that answer. You just
Well, here's the thing, though. I was going to say about that, right? Because I've been using ChatGPT a lot, right? Especially when you have a new company and you're trying to build standard documents, not things that are, I mean, I guess a standard contract is legal, but even at the end of everything I've ever asked it, right? It'll be like, this is information we've gathered. However, we recommend speaking to an attorney, right? So it's almost like they put in their own little fine print now, which is great for those who actually read it, right? Most people are like, oh, these are my bulleted list items, perfect, copy, paste. And they go on with their day. But they do actually put the little disclaimer at the end of each thing now.
Well, let me just tell you, I have made a pretty good living over the past very many years based on people who did not want to hire attorneys to write contracts for them. I'm a litigator, and so I have a nice car, a nice house, most of it built on people who did not want to hire an attorney to write their contracts, or at least look over their contracts for them. They were saving money. And then they get sued, and I say, well, this provision right here, why'd you sign up to that? And they say, well, we didn't think it would happen. I'm like, well, I guess you were wrong. Here's my bill. And I tell everybody.
That's what I was telling you about, Amber. He told me, not to use certain things to write our contracts for like Teach Kids Tech because they're outdated, and he's made,
100%,
he's had to save a lot of companies for that. But go ahead, Sean.
So inevitably, then that question is going to be, Sean, are you going to be the first person to create the first legal chatbot that we're all going to use for things like this?
Oh, goodness, no. The reason these people go wrong, I mean, these are smart businessmen. They know, they've seen a lot of contracts. You could probably jet up a contract and, like 90% of them are just fine. That's that 10% that I make my money off of, right? And so, and that's for people who are actually thinking about know the contract. You just ask the computer to do it. It doesn't know you, the contract. It doesn't know, hey, wait a minute, that guy was kind of sketchy. Maybe I'll add a little thing here. Or maybe he's okay. I'll take this thing up. Because the contract negotiation, we all know this is about a sort of risk management, right? Like, okay, to reach an agreement, I'll just take that chance that this is going to happen. Maybe that's rational, maybe it's not, but the computer can't even weigh that for you. It'll just get up a contract that looks good, like every other contract. But again, I made a lot of money off of form contracts too. People just sign a form contract. It's not tailored to the situation. And there you go, which is funny compared to how cheap it is to get me, even at my rates, to review a contract. I can just sort of glance over like a 5-page contract. I don't even know you paid $100 for it, really. And then, okay, looks fine, and why not do that? I say, but people do it. So if you ask a chat bot to do it, you're going to with a contract, it's going to look fine to you, but there's got to be something wrong. It's not going to. It can't really account for differences in state law, for example. If you're in Virginia and your customers in Maryland, it can't really account for that. It has no knowledge of that. I mean, at some point, maybe it will. That'll be fine. I look forward to this part of the podcast being played for me as I'm packing up my boxes and maybe the door by Johnny Five or Wally. But right now, but it's not going to happen. In the near future, it's going to be hopefully after I retire.
Hopefully. I love that.
He's like, that'll be an after me problem. I'm just going to table that in the drawer, the presidential drawer. I'm going to put that in the drawer until the next term comes into power.
Yeah, precisely.
I need a
love that. Well,
I need a cyber queen. Whoever just said that, you're not getting one.
They have the podcast. Once a week, they listen to the podcast.
Sorry, I just saw that pop up in the chat.
I was like, what? What did I need a hear. So we want to move into the last segment because we are really anxious. This is a learning podcast. This is meant for a lot of people who are interested in cyber, maybe pivoting somewhere else into a different function in cyber. So we want to ask you what advice or guidance you have for either lawyers or cyber professionals looking to grow into the intersection of cyber law, maybe favorite resources, good things they can go to, things they can study?
That's an excellent question because I sort of like grew into it as the field was growing, and so I sort of like happened into it. I was talking to a law student. He's like, he asked, "What kind of courses should I take?" What I said was, "The courses I will tell you to take now, probably won't be that helpful by the time you even graduate." And this guy was a third-year law student, so like a year from now is not going to be a thing. So, what I would probably do, I mean, if you're trying to get it, there's nothing to it but to do it, right? I mean, getting, some certification or whatever, that's well and good. Getting into the industry however you can is well and good. And this sort of learning on the job. I mean, I say this as a person who, learned most of what I do, like on the job. They sort of hired me. They're like, "Oh, you graduated from, these great schools. We'll just hire you and give you a shot." And so, get in, if you get in your foot in the door, sort of learn that. But there are also a lot of resources online. I mean, it is possible if you follow the right people on LinkedIn, cough, cough, Sean Griffin, cough, cough. You can sort of you post about cybersecurity basically every day. You sort of read about it, sort of get, learn more and more about it, sort of get introduced to it. So you say, well, this AI stuff sounds interesting. The data breach stuff sounds less so. The facial recognition is a thing. And, so you can sort of learn about the industry and get into it that way. How to break into it from a legal perspective, hard to do unless you're part of a cybersecurity practice. You would have joined that practice. They'll say, "Okay, we'll give you a case." One of our clients just had a ransomware attack. Here you go. Help them out from a legal perspective. Deal with the FBI for them. Deal with the payment information for them. That sort of thing. You can learn it that way. It's harder to break in, from. I mean, nobody's going to hire you for your once you get hit with a ransomware attack. If you've never handled one before, nobody's going to hire you like cold, because that's kind of a tough sell. You have to sort of know what you're doing and be part of a group before you get involved in that. So.
Okay.
Go past the bar and hack some stuff. Somebody said, "Well, that is one way to do it."
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. The answer.
Definitely get
Please
into
don't do this.
cybersecurity.
Please don't do this.
I mean, definitely get you into cybersecurity. Once you get out of prison, I mean, people might hire you.
Yeah. I mean, hey, Sean, if you ever want to learn some hacking skills, sir, you let me know. I will help you out.
I would like to.
Do you recommend that people? Do you recommend that people seek industry certs like CIPP, or maybe seek like certificates in law? Or is there any kind of credibility marker they can give themselves to give themselves a better foot in that door?
That's what I was going to ask. If you don't want to be a lawyer, can you seek those certs?
Well, you can, sure. Nobody's stopping you. I mean, they're not cheap, but sure, you can get those certs. I know about being a lawyer. It helps me, the lawyer, not because I learned any more as a result of studying for it, but because if somebody was to hire me as a cybersecurity attorney, they go to my page and say, "Oh, well, he's certified. He talks about cybersecurity, and I guess he knows what he's talking about." So it gives me some sort of credibility there. I would assume if you're not a lawyer, and the whole point of a certification, right, is to give you credibility, right? He's not just a guy yakking away and on the internet. He's a guy with a certification. Somebody else like give this guy a test. He passed it. I have to keep up the continuing education in this. So I stay current in the field. So I know something about what I'm talking about. And then, so there has to be a benefit from there, because a lot of non-attorneys also get the CIPP US, CIPP Europe, Canada, what have you. So that is definitely something you can do, but it's an investment that I don't know that I do it right up front. I sort of want to dip my toe into before, because the test is no joke, even for like somebody who's used to taking tests like I was, long before I took the test. But, I had to take it seriously. I had to sort of buckle down and, crack those books in a way that I hadn't done in, years and years. So.
Yeah. Also, the accountability piece is huge too, right? Yeah. Not just credibility, because you're also the one that's writing it, right? So it's kind of like we're all counting on you. Like if we go down, you're going with us, kind of
basically.
Yeah,
basically.
Exactly.
Well, as a lawyer, you take it seriously, and as a lawyer, I sort of internalize my clients' problems with them. I tell all my clients, they're always worried, because if you're getting sued, you're worried. If you're suing somebody, you're worried. If you have a cybersecurity incident, you're worried. I said, "Listen, you're paying me good money to worry. Let me worry. You relax, chill, and I'll just worry for you." And I'm a really good warrior. I'll wake up in the middle of the night, so you don't have to. And,
T-shirt idea. You are a worry warrior.
A worry warrior. I love that.
Professional work. I will take the anxiety, so you don't.
That's my job, right? Just hire me, and then just have a good night's sleep, because I won't. So.
I don't think I've slept since I started in cyber. It's real bad. The day I discovered polymorphic malware, I was like, how is this not on everybody's
I just started
brain?
looking at quantum
Anyway.
computing. This issue should think about
Oh.
quantum computing. I was like, that sounds like science fiction to me. I keep reading about it. It's a real thing, apparently.
It's a real thing. It's a rabbit
Scott
hole.
Bakula's coming after us. I can't believe it.
Yeah, we are. All right. We're going to move into final takeaways soon. We're coming up to the end of the episode, which makes me sad because we've had so much fun. But before that, you do have one question from the audience. I believe you touched on this earlier, but go ahead and answer it again. What is the recourse if AI gets it wrong and you relied on AI's information? I believe you said they'll sue you, not the AI.
Well, I think Amber said ChatGPT tells you don't rely on this. This is just a little toy. I mean, and so you could try to go after OpenAI or whatever and say, hey, you got this wrong. And they'll say, well, we told you we might get it wrong. I mean, there are stories about this. Did you read that New York Times story where the Times reporter drove the Microsoft's AI insane over the course of a couple of hours?
No.
I mean, this is it's just a toy, basically. I mean, you can use it too. I mean, I'm a big fan of toys. You can, MacGyver a toy to do a lot of different stuff for you, but don't rely on it to tell you the truth because it says right up front, you can't miss it. We're just telling you, the words you want to hear. Double check to see if this is the truth. And what I tell everybody, every AI speech I give, and I give a lot of them, I say, listen, insert a human early into the process, right? And I have it on my PowerPoints, insert a human early into the process. I try to do a Google image search for that. That didn't work out well. But I do think that you should put a human into the process as early as possible so they know what is going on, what they're talking about. And so they can catch things that a human will catch. And they will, the computer will not catch certain things a human will. So what's your recourse? Your recourse is to not rely too much on AI to do things that it just can't do.
Thank you.
Be smarter than the AI, people. We are people. Like, use it intelligently. If you even use it to enhance your LinkedIn profile, it says this is just an example. You should always individualize things and rewrite them yourself. And it literally says, please don't use what I just gave you.
Well, because they can tell now. People can tell now. When AI writes something. I mean, I can tell. I gave a quote to an article. Some of the AI took my quote and rewrote it into another article. But you can tell what it is. People can tell you using ChatGPT. They think you're lazy, and nobody wants that. People want something a human writes. So. Yeah.
From a marketing perspective, the biggest challenge is to get it to help you, but not make it sound like AI wrote it. You have to make it sound like a person wrote it.
That's like a new thing now. That's actually a new diss. Like, okay, ChatGPT. Like that was on, what was it? Something like the presidential nomination, whatever debate that was just going on. And the guy literally said, I don't want something that sounds, I don't want to work with a guy that sounds like ChatGPT, right? So that's like it's a total, it's like own vertical now.
It really is, It very much is.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have come to the end of the episode. Super sad. Thank you for spending your Friday with us. Mr. Sean Griffin, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day lawyering and defending the good people of the nation, misusing AI to sit with us and hang out with us today.
Fantastic. I had a lot of fun.
And any key takeaways for the audience? We'll start with one of the queens to give our guests time to formulate.
I will go first.
Go, Amber.
Read fine print and consult a lawyer. Those are my
two.
Yeah, not ChatGPT. Fully. You can maybe prep it, but have a lawyer look at it last. Like on the way out, lawyer out. So that's my advice.
Erica?
My final takeaway is exactly what Amber said. Just make sure you are not relying on AI to write everything for you because people can recognize it. Like Sean said, be smarter than that. And don't have it write your resume because people will be able to see through that. If you have any questions, don't think that you're an attorney because ChatGPT said so. Hire an attorney like Sean or any of the other attorneys in the world. And somebody asked me a question that since I got my check from that biometric case, did I get credit monitoring? Yes, I did get identity and credit monitoring with that as well.
There you go.
My final takeaway is going to be don't chat GPT all the things. Use them for blogs and harmless things, sure, but don't use it for medical advice. Don't use it for legal advice. These people go to school for a long, long time to be experts in their field for a freaking reason. And also what Sean said, organizations, you know what you're supposed to be doing. You hire people like me to tell you what you're supposed to be doing. Then you tell us we're wrong or that you're not going to fund it. And then you get breached. So listen to the lawyer. listen to the cyber experts, and just implement the freaking programs and initiatives that we tell you to implement. Please, for the love of God. Mr. Griffin, you go last.
Let me repeat what I said before. Make sure you have a human into the process early and often, because that will save you a world of headache. Yes, I know we have to pay people. I know people get hungry and sick or whatever, but when you were getting sued because ChatGPT led you down the wrong road, you're not going to say, man, I'm glad I saved that $200. No, you'll just be sorry you didn't do that. So make sure you have people in the process looking over ChatGPT, and just don't let it run your business or run your life.
Yes. Thank you for that.
Actually, our friend George Kamid says the same thing. There are AI-oriented skills, but one thing that AI can never replace is the human communication and the human ability to strategize. So just keep in mind, that's still our value as humans. We are valuable.
Exactly.
This has been another episode of the Cyber Queens. Thank you so much for spending your Friday with us. We love and appreciate you. If you like the content, please like, share, and subscribe. It's absolutely free and the best way you can support us. If not, come at me in the comments. I'll take the free engagement. We will see you all next Friday.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.